Good morning once again to everybody, all my panelists. I welcome you to the show. I'll introduce our panelists one by one and share about them, and then I leave the session to the guest of honors and audience. So today we have got three guests of honors. We have got Mr. Ashutosh Tripathi from Raipur. Is an engineer by a profession and runs a humongous number of schools in the Madhya Pradesh Chhattisgarh region. Along with Ashutosh, we have got Mr. Kush Sakaria. Kush Sakaria is the trust secretary of Vallabhashram group of schools, a huge group of schools in South Gujarat. And the other aspects of Kush is running various medical centers, a Gaushala, and a lot of other things which I leave for Kush to speak about. The third guest of honor comes in from Punjab. He is Mr. Shobhan Soi. Once again, a parent coach, a multiple chain of school owners, and apart from that, he is a good human being and has been doing a lot of coaching, guiding, working with governments. So these are the three guests of honors we have today. Now I introduce our panelist, coming with the senior most person, Dr. Rita Sonawat. Dr. Rita Sonawat has been the Dean of SNDT University at Mumbai. She has worked with the US Department of Education in Washington. She has also worked in the Bremen University in Germany. A versatile person with multiple exposures to education. She is an author of multiple books. She has written special books on multiple intelligences. We have got Miss Asma Zaidi from Hyderabad. I just missed out. Dr. Rita Sonawat is from Mumbai. We have got Asma Zaidi from Hyderabad. Asma is once again vice principal of one of the top schools in Hyderabad. At the same time, she is one of the community leaders, not only in the region of Telangana in India, but Asma is also doing live channel programs with the audiences of Europe, Canada, and US. And she also would be sharing about herself. We just want the host and the panelists and everybody to share something about them, right? And the last but not the least, Miss Anjali Karyappa from Hyderabad. She is an expert of social emotional intelligence. She has been the founder of Spring Up Leadership. And we will leave it for Anjali to once again introduce herself. Over to our guest of honor. I start with A for Apple, so A for Ashutosh. Let Ashutosh have this.
This is not fair, Chandar, to immediately throw the ball on my court. First of all, welcome to all more than 1,300 participants who are a part of this webinar. I really am honored sitting in a very small industrial town of Bhilai to be able to connect with all of you. Although we have our schools running in Raipur in Chhattisgarh, COVID has made me sit in my home and talk to you all. I also, thank Chandar and team, Square Tales, and Mother Maiko, chair, who are all a part of this webinar as panelists. So far as I am concerned, I am an engineer by education, another typical IIT join kar lo to IIT ho gaya, but an educationist by heart, and have been working in school education for long now, but recently shifting my focus towards children with special needs and helping how technology can help them. So when this topic of socio-emotional learning inside and outside the classroom came to me from Square Tales, it was really interesting and really exciting for me to be able to share what are my thoughts and what are my understanding of this particular topic. Looking at the big part, the big chunk of this whole social emotional learning, I'll start with a shlok, and sorry, dear all audiences, I'm a bit inclined towards putting shloks in my talks, because I personally believe that it's a lot to learn from them. So there's a very famous shlok which you all know: Ayam Nija Paroveti Gadana Laghu Chetasam. This is mine, that is yours, is the understanding of people with laghu chetasam, with small mind, small thoughts. Udara charita anamatu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. For people who have a broader character, the Vasudhaiva, the world, the earth, is Kutumbakam, the family, right? And what better than this shlok, which in one line talks about self, the world as one, and the whole story of socio-emotional quotient, we are talking of social quotient, we're talking of emotional quotient, which is beyond IQ. And I think this definitely has already linked us with that broader thought process. And in this pandemic, I believe nothing more could have been, more valid, like what we are sharing. See, the world has already come as a family. We are all sitting together remotely and as a family. This internet was always there, but God knows why there was no webinar like this, sharing so much knowledge all around. Right. So the time will definitely tell us that. And what is our biggest strength are the life skills which we learn in the process. And there's a lot of word all around, now the schools are talking of, educationists are talking about, the psychologists are talking about the life skills that the kids need to learn inside the classroom as well as outside the classroom. And I would like to say, because I don't know how much time do I have. I will keep myself limited to maybe 3 to 5 minutes more, ma'am. Dr. Rita, can you just share with me? I think I have 3 to 5 minutes more to share. So
another 3 minutes, sir.
Yeah. So on that point, I'll say that, when we're talking of life skills, the CBSE has been talking about it. The schools, the different boards are talking about it. But incorporating and inculcating it into our learning system, in our lesson plans, in our day-to-day inside classroom is which is needed now very strongly, more than earlier or at any point of time. With nuclear families and all closed learning atmosphere. See, imagine we are all closed inside our own houses. So much important that we give importance to these life skills, to these social learnings, these emotional learnings by design. It's not like it's just by default that it should happen. So by design, when we are incorporating it inside the classroom, and at the same time thinking how our outside classroom is also, impacted by it. I'd like to share one, I'd like to share share my one particular learning, which is it's a famous. This is a famous. Can you see my screen? Is my screen visible?
Yes.
So I hope you have those people who are working in this field, and my friends, co-chairs, may have heard very strongly about the research of ecological systems theory of Bronfman and Brenner, where this whole ecosystem has to be considered. That the child is sitting in the center, one which is getting affected by the microsystems of the immediate environment, like the immediate family, the household. But it's not the only thing which affects. There are these mesosystems, the exosystems, the macrosystems of local environment, the formal networks, the health services, economy, schools, playgrounds, transport, local government, safety, parks, and on a bigger perspective, even the chronosystem, the broader economic policies, the social, the wider environment, the policy of education, the policy of technology, the whole demographic change, this pandemic for that matter, right? This has affects the single child sitting at the center of this learning. And therefore, inside the classroom as well as the outside of the classroom, I think inside the classroom sits out here in the microsystems, right? But the relationship amongst these different systems, the microsystems and the mesosystems, the exosystems, it impacts a lot so far as the child's learning is concerned. And as I said, I love shlok. So I'll just give you another shlok for this. And there's a very, very, very famous slok in our, Vedantas, which says, Acharyam padamadatte, padam shishya swamedhaya. The teacher gives only a quarter of knowledge. Acharyam padamadatte, padam shishya swamedhaya, padam sah brahmacharibhya. The third quarter comes from sah brahmacharibhya, that is the peers, the people whom with you interact with, and that may be a larger ecosystem. And what does the fourth quarter talk about? So Acharyam padamadatte, padam shishya swamedhaya, padam sah brahmacharibhya, but padam kala kramena cha. The last quarter only comes with kala kramena, with the passage of time. Because we live in this world, and therefore we need to understand how this whole world inside and outside the classroom, and bigger outside than inside, influences us. So I think I have taken a lot of time, and maybe being more theoretical. Just a small one practical example I can say, you can do very, very small things. Just telling a child, what is a big problem, what is a small problem. My pencil got lost, how should I react with it? And I think I have much more competent theorists and practicalists sitting out here who can share an example with the bigger audiences, so that they exactly know how to implement these life skills inside the classroom and practically do it. I think I have set the tone. Maybe a bigger time would have given bigger examples. But thanks a lot, Chandar, and I hope I kept my time.
Yeah, sure. It was absolutely a wonder to have a different, perspective, and starting with the slokas, nothing better than that, right? I gave upon the opportunity to Mr. Shobhan Soi to introduce himself to the larger audience and also share a few words. Our second guest of honor of the day, Mr. Shobhan Soi from Punjab.
Thank you, Chandra. It is really an opportunity to be with such panelists. Dr. Rita is there. She's my mentor. And Asma is there. I'm a big fan of her work. I always say that. Chandra, you are there. I see your work and it's extraordinary. And all the co-panelists and speakers over here. It is such an honor to be with all of you. And I'm here to learn from all of you. I am an educationist, but more coming from the experiential level. And I am not someone who goes inside the classroom and teaches. Rather, I run education as a business. But as a business also, we have to have our own virtues and ethics while running, that why we are doing certain business. Because since we are dealing with the youngest of the population, I can say, of the country or the world, who are going to create the future that we are going to live in, and our children are going to live in. So I think it's a very big responsibility on our shoulders as teachers, what we are doing. And who I am today, as Ashutosh also mentioned about the classroom, I always say that who I am today is someone who was not built inside the classroom, rather what happened with me outside the classroom, maybe during recess, maybe during making friends, creating leadership, creating my own games, creating my own rules, then like fighting with them, hurting them, learning to sympathize. So all those emotions, all those social bondings were created outside the classroom. Because inside the classroom, I was always sitting on a desk listening to someone. So that was not my experience. And I never loved that experience. I was never a good student. I was never a good in scores. I was always a bad scoring child. And my friends always say that, how come you are running education so well? So I'm always doing what I feel a child feels. So I love to do that way. And I think the child loves the experiences. And I see the work, what Dr. Rita has taught us, and what Asma always shares. I've seen her work in Hyderabad, her work in Kashmir, how children are really creating their own toys, creating their own things. That is the kind of experiential learning that they are having, and that is the kind of socio-emotional development, I would say, that is there. I have worked on projects with the government, with the society, wherein we have worked on planting more than 1 lakh trees in 1 hour. These were the Guinness World Record attempts we did. But in all that attempt, I've seen that everything that we did was done by the students, by the school students, very young students from class 3rd to class 8th, 9th. And the way passionately they enroll into doing such things and the kind of learning that they have when they work for the society, when they work for the environment, the kind of love that they have is so pious, so pure that they can really create wonders and uh, they can actually change the earth. That is the potential that they have, but we as teachers need to understand that potential and not kill that potential inside the classroom, rather give them more space, more learning, more experience of such things. That experience is what will, I think, bring them the real learning. I again would say, as Ashutosh said, that classroom के बाहर बहुत सारी learning है, हमें focus छोड़ना होगा. I'm sorry, I'm using Hindi. I'll come back to English again. I'm not good at shlokas at all. So हमें focus छोड़ना होगा इस एक सिस्टम से कि हाँ ठीक है हमें सिर्फ स्कोर चाहिए और सब सेम ही लर्निंग कर रहे हैं. Everyone needs to see what they need, and every child has to have a different kind of learning, and they need to share their own way of answering and expressing their learning. Okay, you cannot just answer a marks sheet and qualify for a class. I think there's a lot that that age can learn. If a 3-year-old child has a different capability and a 5-year-old child has a different capability, and what all things we need to define that they should know. So that is all important, and the child should go through all those experiences at that age. Abhi, I was just playing with my son last evening. I'm just sharing this story. That would be the last one. So I was just playing with my son last evening, and I could realize that he's turning 9, and he still does not have a lot of life skills. मतलब एक रस्सी को गांठ मार के ऊपर खींचना भी, it was tough for him. He was not able to do that tying of the rope properly. So I had to make him learn that. If these are the small life skills that children are missing today, and I see with our employees as well, that even a maths teacher does not know how much size of a room would be just by looking at the room. These are all life skills. We just don't have to know how many inches are there in a feet and how many feet are there in a meter. So that is not the skill we have. Same way as we are going to talk about the socio-emotional development, as Miss Anjali is also good at it, as Mr. Chinder said. So I think socio-emotional development is also experiential. When we are with the friends, when we are experiencing our life, is where we learn automatically. We don't need to be taught moral science to someone. So thank you so much, Chandra, for giving this opportunity and allowing me to be with all of you. It is such a wonderful panel, and I wish all the best to all the learners over here. Thank you. Over to you, Chandra.
Yeah. So, great thanks to you, Shobhan, for sharing your experience. Now we move to our third guest of honor of the day, Mr. Kush Takaria. Over to you, Mr. Kush.
Thank you, Chandraji. First of all, very good morning to the 16670 participants and still growing, and a very good morning to the esteemed people. And thank you, Chandraji, for giving me an opportunity to be with such esteemed people here. Rita ma'am, it's an honor to be with you here, and being a student always. My view is that I have always been a learner. An accountant turned into education, and this comes out of passion. I am associated with a group of who is into education since 1949. Indian classical music has been our base, and in 76 we came up with our first CBSE residential school in Gujarat. And the journey so far has been very wonderful. We are currently operating 4 CBSE day-come boarding schools in South Gujarat. We also have a free tribal school. We have a free medical center for the tribal people, and believing in Gau Seva, because holy cow has always been very near and dear to all of us. So we have 300 plus cows within us. So this is just a part of us. Education has always been very dear and near to all of us here at Vallabh Ashram, and especially me, because I have been involved into it since 2009. I was a part of Nexus Education and their preschool structures before, and I'm really thankful to the Bilakhas for allowing us and giving that learning to us. And I'm also thankful to ECA, Swati ma'am, Rita ma'am, Kamini ma'am, all other members who guide us on constant basis. And my viewpoint, I see a lot of families who are very nuclear. Kids are in some other
I think we lost Kushbai over there. So we'll just see if he can join us. Now, taking us to the next level of the webinar of the day, we have Dr. Rita Sonawat. I would like to first thank all the guests of honors, Mr. Shobhan, Mr. Ashutosh, and Kushbai to join us onto this effective panel where we have now around 1,700 teachers, and we expect by the time the time grows, we have around 3,000 plus teachers to join us, expected to join. So it's like our panelists are addressing a stadium full of teachers. And I would like to, as I have introduced Dr. Rita, Asmaji, and Anjali ji, I hand over the proceedings to Dr. Rita Sonawat. As and when my things are needed, I will join Dr. Rita ma'am. But it's now, the floor is open to Dr. Rita. A big round of applause to Rita ma'am. And special thanks from our end, so that we can now she can take the stage now from us. Though we don't have a stage, it's virtual, but let's believe that she's on the stage and take the stage for us. Thank you, Rita ma'am. Please welcome to the show. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Good morning to all of you. Thank you, Chandra, for inviting and honoring the guests. It was wonderful to listen to Kush and Ashutosh. It is giving different perspective. When the people are coming from other field, they come with a different perspective. Like Ashutosh has talked about Bronfenbrenner's theory, and if I take from that, then the understanding of early childhood education is in India, especially when we had a new education policy, it has given a lot of importance to early childhood education. It is given as a foundation years. And when Chandra has given the topic socio-emotional development, and that too the time when we had a COVID-19 in place, and they are talking about social distancing. So social distancing with that social and emotional development, where we talk about touch and feel and hug to each other, and here COVID is saying distance. So it's a very important topic which he has thought of. Otherwise, also when we see the aim of early childhood education is holistic development of the child, and in the holistic development, these two aspects, social and emotional, becomes very, very important. So the topic is relevant today. For understanding of this topic, I'll suggest to all the those who are attending the webinar, for understanding, you can refer the book Child Development by Harlock, and if you are interested in higher level of learning about child development, then you can refer the book Child Development by Burke. So these two books will give you good understanding about the subject. Now about social and emotional development, I'll come to the separately. When we talk about emotional development, there are certain emotions which are very relative according to the age of the child. In particular age, one emotion is normal and the same emotion becomes abnormal in another age. For example, if the child is showing tantrums in a mall and the child is 2-year-old, it's perfectly fine for everybody that this child wants something and he wants he's showing tantrum. But the same behavior, if 5-year-old child is doing there, you can understand what parents are saying. If they are not regulating their emotions, then it is a problem. So emotions are such where we should understand the child's development level according to the age of the child. Emotion is a state of consciousness and a feeling. Emotions are normally, it's open-ended. The children showing emotion in the school also, if the child is angry, he pull the hair, he push the child, he take the thing away. So he is showing his aggression in a particular way. So this open-ended, when the child is showing, many times it happens like we are not paying the attention to that whole emotion of the child, and because not paying emotion, it is not closing, and that behavior remains with the child till the child is going to the adolescent or the adulthood. So it's very important for the teachers to understand the emotion, to understand the cause of the emotion, the expression of the emotion, and how to manage that emotion so they can go to the closure. Some emotions which I will like to share with you, which our experts are going to talk in a detail, like attachment, trust, love, feeling, temperament, concept of self, and the theory which is very close to socio-emotional development is the Erik Erikson's theory. So I will tell those who are listening here to please go and read Erik Erikson's 2 stages. One is autonomy and second is initiative. These 2 stages, if you understand, then you understand that when the children develop autonomy, the virtue of will develop automatically. If the child is developing initiative, the virtue of purpose is developing automatically. So these are the things which you need to understand from the theory and come to the practical side of the classroom. For example, if the child is coming in the classroom and very quiet, not speaking to anybody, so immediately the teacher think why the child is quiet, what has happened to the child, and if she starts exploring, she will understand the child much more and the child's feeling also. So these are certain things which as a teacher we need to focus on, the causes why the child is behaving the way the child is differently behaving in a classroom situation. So baby's emotions are very different than the adult emotions. That also we understand through the child development theories. And if a child is a 2-year-old child is beating to the mother or pushing to the mother, that is definitely accepted. But if 7-year-old child is again doing the same expression of the emotion, the child will not be accepted. So age, developmentally appropriate, age appropriate emotions are very, very important for us to understand, so we can deal and regulate and manage emotions properly. About the social development also, we are talking about sharing and friendship and cooperation, collaboration. Today people are talking a lot in the classroom. Children should be sitting together in a small larger group. So these are some of the sitting arrangement which we are talking, so the socialization process normally take place in the classroom. And we have outside of the classroom also the games where the children can play in a small group and a large group. So children, they have one ball and one ball is shared by a group of children. So this sharing and cooperating and collaborating, these are some social skills, and most important is the friendship. This is the time when the children, they love friendship, where the giving and taking is taking place. Then this particular skill, when the children are learning, it will help them later on in their professional life also. So to start with this, I think so. This is a background which I have given to the social and emotional development. Again, I'll come back with the how to manage social emotional development after listening to our 2 experts. Now I would like to invite as an expert Azma, who is introduced by Mr. Chandar. So Azma will be dealing with the social and emotional inside and outside of the classroom. So Ms. Azma.
Yeah, before Asma ma'am comes in, sorry Rita ma'am, I just came in for a moment. We
Yeah.
would like to thank our guest of honor. They have been pinging me at the back end. They have other aspects to work on too. So a big thank you to Kush Bhai Sakaria, Mr. Soban Soy and Ashutosh Tripathi sir for joining us and taking time out from their busy schedules and guiding the teachers. And another question, also on the behalf of panelists, I would like to thank them once again. And if they can just give their last quote, and then they can always take the lead from the audiences. Ashutosh sir, yeah.
Once again, thank you all the panelists, and it will be really, really nice to be connected more often on this aspect, because this really, moves any educator, I think. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Shobhan sir.
Thank you, Chandar, for organizing such an initiative, having more than 1,700 educators on one platform. Such a big hats off to you for organizing such good quality work and having such eminent personalities on the panel is wonderful. And thank you for inviting me over here. Thank you, all the teachers who are listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Shobhan ji. Kush bhai, can we lost you in that?
Yes, yes. Sorry for the technical glitch. Just a small line. It's very important to know each other in the family, outside the family, and the family means all the five stakeholders of a school, maybe a preschool or a K-12 school. And thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, Chandar bhai, and thank you very much, Rita ma'am, and the esteemed panelists. Thank you very much for allowing me. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Asma ji, now we can continue with our. I introduce you to Miss Asma first, ma'am. You just share something about yourself. We do not have that time to introduce about you, and then the stage is yours.
You're home during the lockdown or lockdown with the Square Tales Reading app. Turn your child into a confident and independent reader with the Square Tales Reading app from Square Panda. A unique app that uses technology to mix fun stories and engaging characters into a reading and learning experience like no other, week on week. This week, the kids are reading a new book. So what are you waiting for? Download the free Square Tales Reading app today.
Asma ma'am from Hyderabad.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you, Mr. Chandar, for selecting me and having me here. It's an honor. So I'm a school leader. I'm also a teacher's trainer. I'm the territory head for Telangana and Jammu and Kashmir for Early Childhood Association and APER, Association of Primary Education and Research in India. Apart from this, I have a lot of TV shows. One of them is called Bachche Hamara Future on Channel Win. And I would like to move on very quickly to the topic of today, social emotional learning. And I would like to tell the audience that emotional learning begins maybe even before birth and at the time of birth and definitely after birth. So the birth for the child is a very traumatic process. And as the child grows up, the child needs a lot of love, attention, and care, a lot of physical holding, a lot of calm in the environment to deal and overcome the trauma of birth. As children grow up, the shocks that they get can be said to be a trauma. So this experience right now of the pandemic is also considered as a trauma for little children because they are away from their schools, they're away from their friends. So there are some very simple ways that you can overcome these things. And one of the few very easy ways is a lot of nature. If you can take the children out to play, take them into the garden, it's very healing for the child. When children are born and after they are born, give them a lot of massages, give them a lot of love, take them out for walks, let them explore art a lot, and give them vocabulary to understand their emotions and understand what kind of an emotion that they are going through. Not just happy and sad, but vocabulary for things like nervous, excited, surprised. So these are different fear. So these are different emotions when words have a lot of power. When you give vocabulary to the children, it really helps them to express themselves. And this love and emotion is also explained by a theorist called Maslow. And he says that after you have your basic needs for food and survival, children need a lot of love and a sense of belonging for them to feel happy and confident about themselves. For their emotional development, it is very important to have love and belonging. So children need, a calm physical environment to feel safe and protected. One of the ways that you can help children is by letting them be involved in your world and making them feel a part of the family. Children always like to do what adults like to do. So they are not very interested in toys, and especially in this lockdown time, parents can focus on life skills, like somebody else said. So the things that you do at home, participating in food preparation, taking care of the house, taking care of the environment, these are all activities that will develop a good sense of self-worth and confidence in children. So it is very important that we use these little things to improve the self-worth and confidence of children. And ma'am was talking about sharing. So when we are in a classroom situation, it is important for teachers and it is important for parents to understand that sharing does not happen immediately. It happens in stages, just the way play happens in stages. So the child in the beginning likes to be alone, does not like to share his things, and slowly the child has to be encouraged, to share his toys or share his things, and this can be done by role modeling. So if adults are good role models and adults, show children how to share their own things, they share their own space, then we teach children some good things about how they can share their things with others also. And on the same point about love and belonging, it is very important that we don't threaten the children. We don't, because when mothers or adults say things like, I will leave you and go, you're troubling me a lot, I will close you in a dark room. These things put children, they have a negative impact on children. So it's very, your voice, the kind of tone that you're using, it shouldn't be harsh, it should be gentle. It makes children feel secure, when they are loved and they are protected, and children trust the adults, then they feel secure, and it gives them a lot of social and emotional confidence. One of the other theories that I would like to point out is one that was given by Bowlby. It is called the attachment theory. And he says that children between 0 to 6 years, and you should study it after the panel, need to form very secure and loving attachments. So there is a primary caregiver and there is a secondary caregiver. As children grow up, the primary caregiver needs to be fixed. It needs to be a constant in a child's life. For any case, if the primary caregiver is not constant, then children have a lot of, they're not very emotionally strong. They become insecure. So, in the first few years, the primary caregiver has to be constant. And I will give you a few examples. One of them is my own. When I was young and I was studying and I was going to college and I was pregnant, I had my children. I had a full-time maid who used to take care of my daughter. And at that time, of course, I did not have so much understanding as I do now. And those were one of the mistakes that I made. And she was very, very attached to the housemaid because she used to live with her the whole day. And suddenly, all of a sudden, that maid disappeared. Within 1 year, the maid disappeared. And it was really tough for me to get my child attached to me, So these are things that we learn from life. So it is my lesson. I'm sharing it with you. It is important that children are constant, and these things and that insecurity of losing that attachment from a primary caregiver or from a person who was a constant in her life, it took many years to overcome. And this is another thing that we can see in our schools. If we, connect the attachment theory to our nurseries and to our playgroups, then we will see that children are attached to the mothers. And when the children come into a nursery setup, we cannot expect them to suddenly go out of their mother's arms and come to a teacher and be attracted to the school. the nurseries need to have a transition process where the child is, comes to the school, sees the environment, sees the teacher, takes time, and then goes back. With small children who are just coming to a playgroup or a nursery, it should be done in small phases. And this is something that I've personally done in my own school. And it has helped us a lot. So I'm sharing it with you. I'm sure it is going to help you too. So what we do is that we take the children we allow the mothers to come into the classroom, and we allow the child to see the environment and to see the classroom, go around, and then go home. They are not asked to stay for the whole day. So the child comes with the mother, they see the environment, they go back. Then they come again, they see the environment, they go back. And after 3-4 days, the teacher takes the child at the gate and continuously reassures the child that I will give you back to the mother. And that way, of course, with a lot of children, you have to space it out and you have to plan things. You cannot have all the children come at once. But trust me, this little bit of, effort and hard work on our part helps the child to form very strong trust bonds with the teacher and makes the whole year very smooth. So the child comes to the school, the teacher takes the child for maybe like 5 minutes. The child is going to cry, he's going to wail, he's going to put a tantrum. And then immediately you take one round and you give the child back to the mother. Then the second day you do the same thing. The third day you do the same thing. Slowly the child is going to understand that you are not going to take him away from the mother. You are going to just give him back to his mother, return the child to the mother. Then you can add a little things. You bring the child into the nursery, open the tiffin box, give them 1 or 2 grapes or whatever the tiffin the mother has given, close the box, return the child back to the mother. And this way we form trust with the child. And trust me, when the child forms trust with the teacher, then it is very beautiful that the children follow you like ducklings. They follow the teacher all around the class. And it is very helpful for the teacher for the rest of the year to have this secure and emotional, bond that you have. Then I would like to talk about the imitation that children in this age go through. It is very important for adults that we model behavior to the child, because children imitate everything that adults do, right? So for the emotional development of the child, it is very important that the whole environment is conducive to the learning of the child. For example, when we are teaching for the emotional development, it is important that children learn to, the adults are modeling the right way and the right behavior, so that the children are able to gain that strength and confidence and self-esteem. I think I have covered my points, and within the few minutes that were given to me, I would like to pass on to Anjali, and then we can come back with questions.
Thank you, Anna, for your talk, and where you have talked about play and sharing. It's very important for us to understand that for socio-emotional development, the role play also plays a very significant role, because in a role play, they learn sharing with the other children.
Yes.
Because in the role play, there are limited material, and through that they learn stages of sharing.
Yes, and ma'am, I would also like to add something that I had missed, that during the, one of the ways to deal with, for your emotional development, one of the few ways is also breathing. It is very important, breathing is one of the few exercises that you can do to calm the child down, to start your day, and to overcome any kind of stress or fear that the child is going through. So within the classroom also, if teachers use some time for breathing, maybe like 5 minutes, and make it into a routine, then it helps to calm and settle down the fears that little children have in the class, and they can use it as a thing to start their day.
Yeah, that's very important. Calming time is definitely a very important. And with calming time, we always talk about consistency also. So teachers,
Yes.
in her behavior, she should be having consistency, so she can relate with the children in a routine way. That's
Absolutely.
becoming
Consistency
important.
is very important, and setting boundaries for children so that they know that, what kind of behavior is acceptable and what kind of behavior is not acceptable.
Yes.
When parents and adults are inconsistent with their expectations, then it confuses the child.
So that's these are the few points. Okay, thank you so much. Now I would like to invite Anjali, who will be speaking social emotional learning, and she's an expert in this area. So we will be listening to Anjali, and after that we will be taking some questions from the audience. Anjali, please.
Thank you very much, Rita ma'am. I'm very honored to be here and share the panel with Ms. Rita and Ms. Asma Zaidi and all the other esteemed panelists. Thank you very much, Mr. Chanda, for having me be a part of this. I have a screen to share, so I'm just going to try to share the screen. Yes. So, yes. Okay. So I'm Anjali. I'm the founder of Spring Up, and we work in the area of social emotional learning for children. We are an experiential learning program, so we use a lot of mediums like art and music and nature and a lot of things to teach children social emotional skills. So we work with children, educators, and parents. What I'm going to do is just add on to what Miss Asma and Miss Rita and all the participants have taken us through. So I'm just going to take you through what exactly does social emotional learning mean. So this is the domains of social emotional learning. If you can see my screen, this is, we always start with self-awareness, that is a child's ability to understand himself. It's again age specific. It takes a lot of time for a child to reach a stage of reflection. But self-awareness would be understanding emotions. What does it feel like? How does it trigger your thoughts? How does it trigger behavior? From there, we take them to a space of self-management. Now that I understand my emotions, I understand what are my triggers, how do I manage this? From that space, I understand myself, I'm able to recognize certain things. How do I go to a space of social awareness? Is how do I relate what I see around me and how do I relate to other people, which is also empathy building. And we can take children to a space of empathy building only when we start with a space of self-awareness and self-management. And from there, we take them to a space of relationship skills. How do you start building nurturing and engaging relationships? And how do you build relationships with people whose perspectives are different from yours? And even with children, like I think Mr. Ashutosh was also mentioning, the friendships are like the basis of all relationships. And if you look at relationship skills, building nurturing relationships not only with people you agree, but also with people you don't agree with. I think that is a very important skill. And from there, taking children to a point of responsible decision making is how do I pause? How do I think through the choices I have? And then how do I reach a space of being able to make a choice and not just make the choice? I also have to bear the consequences of our choices. So in a gist, this is what this is the domains of social emotional learning, and this is the domains that is used worldwide. But I think often we are asked this question is that why do we require social emotional training in schools? Why do children need? Because I think when all of us were growing up, nobody spoke about social emotional learning. So one of the reasons is, I think someone already mentioned, was changing family structure. A lot of this learning happened within families, within communities, but now we've largely moved to nuclear families, two-parent homes. Both the parents are working. They don't need too many grandparents. So the learning is not happening at home. From there, we move to a space of children being overly exposed to technology, which pretty much means is that I'm bored. I don't know to self-soothe. I don't know how to take care of myself. So you walk into any restaurant and the first thing you see is parents walk in. I mean, all of us do it. Parents walk in, they switch on a tab, they switch on a mobile phone and give children that. So, or if a child is crying, the first thing you see is people switching on technology and sharing it with them. So the message you're giving children is that, you know, your emotion is not important. We are not teaching them to process that emotion or to deal with that emotion or to self-soothe, but we are giving them quick fix solutions, which means instant gratification is at an all-time high, concentration is at an all-time low. We have 6-year-olds in our classrooms who cannot sit, which is extremely worrying. Also add to that, social emotion, cognitive learning or learning happens only when you are in a safe social and emotional space. So if you even look at how your brain functions, your emotions are in your, come from a space called the amygdala, and your prefrontal cortex is where your executive functions, that is your planning and decision making, happen. And they're very close to each other, which means that when you're emotionally upset, you're unable to think clearly, you're unable to make decisions quickly. So it's the same with a child. When they are not in a safe social and emotional space, learning is not going to happen in the classroom. So it's a plate on which every other learning happens. And from that, going to a space of, we are bringing up a generation of children of whose future we have no idea of. And I think COVID is proving that, more than enough. We don't know what jobs they're going to have. We don't know what the world is going to look like 10 years from now or 15 years from now, which pretty much means change is going to be the only constant. And with change, there is emotions. So your ability to recognize emotions, your ability to understand your triggers, your ability to manage these emotions become like very essential skills for children to be happy as well as successful. And that's why it makes it so important for educators also to be spending more time on social emotional learning. So I saw a couple of questions regarding how do we use it in the classroom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly take you through some of the skills that, some of the activities that we do, in class or in our sessions with schools that we work with, which probably you can also use in the classroom. So it always starts from a space of self-awareness. And I think as educators, it's nice for us to understand that any emotion starts physically first. So helping from our physical space is when it impacts thoughts, and from thoughts triggers behavior. What we usually do is we address the behavior, as I think Rita ma'am already mentioned. We usually address the behavior, but what is causing the behavior, I think, is the more important thing. So one of the things that definitely help, we work with children from 4 years onwards. And one of the things that helps is, as Ms. Asma also mentioned, is naming the emotion. And one of the things to start off with is to start with the 4 primary emotions and then move on to secondary emotions. So your 4 primary emotions would be happy, sad, angry, and scared. And then to take children through a space of what does this emotion look like. Like, for example, I'm just going to show you a sheet. I hope this is visible. I think it's going to be a mirror image, but nevertheless, I'm showing you an image here, which basically you can take children through what does this emotion physically feel like. You can probably draw it on a board. We do a lot of these activities in our classroom where you can draw it on a sheet. It's a fun activity that you can do with your children. And children will be able to tell you where your muscle is feeling tight, what's happening to your eyes, which basically means they're able to recognize that emotion. So from a physical space, the first thing would be to name the emotion, help them name the emotion, to take them to understanding the physical dimensions of that emotion. From that space, take them to what are your triggers. So if you have a classroom, maybe one day of just picking up one emotion and just working through, what are your triggers? What makes you happy? Get children to think, share what you feel as well. So basically you have, as an educator, you would have a trigger chart, which kind of tells you that, okay, which child's trigger, which would kind of help you address the behavior as well. So from the trigger would come to a space of how do you manage emotions, and then would come the various skills of managing. And like I think Ms. Asma and Ms. Rita already, Dr. Rita already mentioned, breathing would be a big part of emotions. I'm not going to go into the brain and how the brain triggers emotions, and how your first reaction to an emotion is from your space of your alligator brain, which is in a fight or flight response. And after some time is when your thinking brain starts. So when we're doing an emotion like anger, which is not a bad emotion, I think another thing to kind of specify in the classroom is that every emotion is fine, and it's okay to feel all the feelings. It's okay to cry when you feel sad. It's okay for boys to cry when they feel sad. It's okay to feel angry, because you feel angry only when something is unfair. It's okay to feel scared, and it's not okay to laugh at other children when they feel scared, because everybody feels scared for different things. And so you could also work like on having, we have different kinds of charts, but this is something that you could put up in a classroom. It also has a dial which a child can move around, and in case they're unable to express themselves in words, they would also be able to show you what emotion they're feeling. You could also use a lot of emotion cards, which basically means once you've introduced an emotion, you could do like a quick check on emotions. Hey, what does this look like? Which basically takes children to a space of being able to recognize and being able to label the emotion. The next stage would be, how do I manage the emotion? I think I saw a few questions which said, what can we do when a child is, having a tantrum? See, one of the things is that an emotion is like the waves of the sea. So it hits you, and when it hits you, when a wave hits the beach, it's not suddenly going to go back. It's going to go into the beach, and then it's going to go back. So that process of washing over and then going back is going to happen. So addressing a child and trying to calm a child when the child is having a tantrum is not going to help. And that's where helping children label emotions, knowing what to do, taking them slowly through a process, step by step and consistently, as to what to do when, what are your coping skills. So we have a traffic signal that we use in class, which is stop. When you're feeling anger, it's okay to feel anger, but what you can do is stop. Then the next slide is your think, and the last one is choose. So when you stop, what can you do when you stop? Take a deep breath, drink a glass of water, which is basically the time. As educators, we know that's the time for your thinking brain to start. So we're just helping the child cope. So when a child is having a tantrum, what would help is to listen with the child and to say, I'm there with you. Behaving badly, hitting someone, being destructive is not okay. I'm going to be with you while you process this emotion. What you're doing is not okay, but after this, can we talk about it? So probably having a calm corner in your class, probably having certain things that can distract the child till they go through a tantrum would be some of the things that you could possibly work on in the classroom. The other thing would be, art is a great medium to help children express emotions. Using music in the classroom to connect to various emotions. What do you feel? What does this music make you feel like? Calming music. A lot of times for younger children, we tend to believe that it has to be, something that has a lot of beats, but not necessarily. What's important for children is to experience all their senses. So mindfulness activities are extremely helpful, because it also helps children pause. One activity we do in class is, when we get into a class and we find children extremely hyper, unable to control themselves, right from the beginning, we start doing a pause activity, which is a lot of fun for children, where we start counting and we say, okay, we're going to do a 20-second pause. So we do 10, then increase it to 20, increase it to 30, and we keep repeating it. So basically, on an everyday basis, on a weekly basis, we are helping children reach that point of being able to pause and be with themselves, which is also one of the steps to be able to self-soothe. So a lot of art in the classroom would help, because children who can't speak or express themselves with voice would probably show you their interpretation of the world or how they're feeling through art. The power of breath, lot of fun breath activities. I'm not going to go into this, because both Ms. Asma and Dr. Rita had, I think Asma wants to add something here. Asma, please go ahead.
No, we lost your voice. So if you could repeat the last point.
I was just mentioning that with art is a great medium to use in the classroom. Like I said, we use a lot of painting. Give children big, huge bodies and allow them to paint and express, what emotion you feel. Because some children may not be able to verbally tell you, but they might be able to express it through art. And when I say art, it just does not mean painting and drawing. It could be a lot of things. Like nature is a great medium to teach social emotional skills. Just sitting around ants would be like a great medium to see how they have social emotional skills. Birds, the trees, all of it. Yes, the power of breath. lot of fun activities. One of our favorite things to do in classes as soon as we go is to do a mindfulness activity. It could be something as simple as we're smelling a hot cup of cocoa, which just means breathe in and take your cocoa and breathe out before you want to sip. We use bubbles in the classroom. So allow children to blow bubbles and breathe in and breathe out. Bubbles is also a self-control activity that you can do in the classroom. Blow a lot of bubbles first, allow them to jump around, and then blow bubbles again, and then give them a pause, which basically means we're building that skill of being able to pause and build self-control, which is your impulse. Self-control is basically not catering to your impulse, which is, this is what I want to do. I want to jump and I want to burst the bubble, or I'm really angry, so I want to take something and throw it to someone, which is what I want to do. Can we build that pause between that want and need to be able to stop, to be able to take that pause and then reach that point of what do I need to do, which is I am going to drink a glass of water till my thinking brain starts, or I'm going to wait till ma'am asks me to start touching the bubbles. I think those are some of the things that you can do in the classroom. Mindfulness activity, I already touched upon it. Once children are in a comfortable space of self-awareness is when children will be able to move to a phase of understanding and being able to build empathy to others. So that's where voice activities, basics of self-expression. I have one activity which I'm going to show you before I think we have questions to take as well. So one of the things that you could do with, one of the things that you could do with empathy would be to draw this huge heart on crepe paper and write down things that children say to each other, which is hurtful. Children tell adults, and keep crumpling the paper. And as you keep crumpling the paper, you realize when you uncrumple it, the crumple still remains. So that's a good empathy activity. Sorting out baskets as to what respect is. What does respect look like? What does respect sound like? Because respect by itself is just a word. If we can break it down into different activities, buckets which are drippers and buckets which are fillers, actions that are good actions which help other people, actions that hurt other people would be good empathy activities. Helping children express themselves, use their voice. How do I use my whisper? How do I use my outdoor voice? Again, would be great activities, and which can be taught and can be used beautifully between for 4 to 6 year olds. So so I think we'll be open to taking more questions. I just like to end that all of these things can be taught to children. It just requires a lot of patience from us adults, because every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them and who understands the power of connection and insists that they can become the best that they can possibly be. This is one of my favorite quotes, and I think as educators and as parents, if all of us can approach children and social emotional learning with that perspective, I think it is easier to be consistent and not lose our cool.
Yeah.
Learning to read was never so much fun. Help your child acquire reading skills starting at home. Get your child reading and learning with the SquareTales reading app today and turn them into confident readers for life. Each book slowly increases the level of learning following a sequence of phonological awareness, so your child becomes an independent reader. All this while the child is playing. Download the SquareTales reading app today.
Can I add a point?
It was a wonderful presentation, and your slides were superb and very beautiful slides which you have shown to our audience. Here what I would like to tell, most of the books are writing unpleasant and pleasant emotions, and where Anjali has very clearly said there is no emotion which is unpleasant, maybe fear, anger, jealousy, all these emotions are pleasant. And she has talked about primary and secondary emotions. So that's a very wonderful classification she has given. Apart from that, she has talked about art and music. So these can work as a therapy to the children, those who have an emotional problem or crisis. So that's the reason when the children, they come to the school, the first activity we have a music activity. Why this music activity we have never thought? It is because children, they are living their loved one at home, their toys, their own people at home, and when they come to the school, the anxiety in the school is very high. So the first activity, when it is a music activity, it calms down the children. So music can work as a therapy on emotions to the child. So beautifully you have explained, and apart from that, what I like is the behavior, the expression when the children they give, that is many times not a cause. For example, behavioral problem, if child is showing nail biting in the classroom. So this nail biting, when the child is showing, that is not a
Symptom. It's a symptom.
problem, is something else. The problem can be the child is insecure, and because of the insecurity, child is nail biting. So here, if the insecurity goes, then automatically the nail biting stops. So this is what we have to understand. Sometimes we are addressing the symptom, not the cause. So in the behavioral problem, which is very much linked with the emotion and social development, and Anjali has beautifully explained how we can manage the emotion in a class. So at the end, I will be, after the question and answer session, I will be giving you some strategies in which also we can take care of the emotion. So now we will ask the questions which the
Can
audience.
I add a point, ma'am?
Yes, please.
So to add on to what Anjali and Rita ma'am talked about emotions, I'd just like to address the panelists and address the audience and say that if you look back at your life and you remember the things about your childhood, you don't remember everything. So we don't remember things that are neutral, but the things that we remember are linked to our emotions. Whether it is a happy emotion, a fearful emotion, a sad emotion, everything that we remember is linked to our emotion. And that is why it is important that we set the tone of our classroom so that the child is happy, feels secure and warm inside the classroom, so that he has good memories and is able to learn properly, learn well in class. So emotions set the tone for learning.
Yes.
So I'll ask a question to Anjali. Anjali, you were talking about some chart which somebody has asked from the audience. They couldn't see the chart. So if you can show the chart to the audience.
Yes. I showed a couple of charts, but I'm assuming they wanted to see the physical.
The wheel, which has a wheel.
Okay, yes.
The voice-o-meter.
Yes. So this is a moodometer. So it has the 4 primary emotions on it. So if you have children who are like, really crying a lot or very upset, unable to express themselves, I don't have, it also has an arrow which moves around. And this is handmade, which our children make in class as well. So you can make, every child takes this home, they stick it on their, at home. It's helpful for parents also. So this is a moodometer that you can use in your classroom. You can get your children to make and use at home as well. And buying from parents, I think, is like very important when we're doing teaching social emotional learning in school.
That's great. That's a very good strategy. And actually this comes as a cognitive behavioral therapy. So if you have a moodometer and you just mark how many times the child is with the red and how many times with the green and the blue, or whatever the color you have shown. So if you know the data with you, you will know where the child stands in particular emotion and can help the child. So that way we can really support the children. Last thing which I will like to tell about some strategies for the emotional management, where the first thing and for most important is there is an abbreviation called RULER, which is given by NAEYC in their one of the articles. From there I have picked up. RULER can work as a strategy. R is for recognizing the emotion. So Anjali has talked about first step is you should be talking about the emotion, recognize what emotions you are facing. Are you irritated? Are you frustrated? Are you jealous? And then understand the cause and the consequence of emotion. What is the cause? Why I'm irritated? Why I am jealous? So you need to understand the cause and consequence of that emotion. The third is the L is for labeling emotion accurately. So when you have recognized the emotion, third is label it accurately. Think, are you really irritated? Are you really frustrated? Or irritated or frustrated? Come to the consensus, which is the correct labeling of the emotion. Then E is expressing emotion in a way that are appropriate for the time, because this is the time. If I say something, how it will be. And for this E, what I have seen, wherever the inclusive setup is there, I have measured that scientifically. Most of the special children, they don't hurt and they don't show their aggression towards the special child. They show expression towards other children, but they restrain themselves from their anger towards the special child. So this is the way the other children are benefiting and regulating their emotions. So children can easily regulate also emotions. So R is for regulating the emotion. So if we follow the ruler abbreviation, then we can manage the emotions very well. So what do you want to say, Anjali, apart from this?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, ma'am. Completely agree with you. It's a great acronym for people to remember and use as well.
And for social development also, we can say some activities like if this one thing, most of the parents, they have a problem at home brushing the teeth. And this is so important activity, and children, they are craving about doing this activity. So if school can take it as an activity, so they can bring their own brush, but the toothpaste is 1 or 2 toothpaste. So they have to learn to wait for their turn. When the one person is putting the paste, the other children are waiting for the turn. So waiting for the turn, they are learning from such activity, and this is the way the social development takes place. So we need to know the activity specifically for the social development and specifically for the emotional development. Then both the development we can do justice.
I think someone has, I saw a couple of questions on children interrupting.
Yeah.
Children interrupting during class, during when the teacher is speaking. And also a question on is mindfulness related to emotions? I'll just address, yes, I'll just address because this is something that we work with a lot is interruption. So the first, I think as adults, it's nice if we understand why a child who's like between 3 to 6 is so new to the world and they're so excited about everything that they see around them. And then they want to share it with us because it's important. And at that point, we're asking them to use self-control, which is self-management skills, social awareness, which is to understand that someone else is speaking and you have to be respectful to that person, and then wait for your turn. So it's actually a lot of skills. So one thing that you can use is we have this beautiful book by this author called Julia Cook, and it's called My Mouth is a Volcano. So it's a great book. A great medium of teaching social emotional learning would be through stories, because then it wouldn't sound like instructions or nagging, but it is like you're talking through a character. And this is a really fun book where when you have a child interrupting in your class, all you need to say is, hey, is your mouth a volcano? And then you have the whole class giggling, and the child you've just asked not to interrupt will not feel bad as well. So do check out this book, because I saw some of them bringing up interrupting in the class, which is self-control and self-management and social awareness. Yeah.
I think they're asking for the book again, so please repeat the name of the book.
It's called My Mouth is Not a Volcano by Julia Cook. I could just type it in.
There is another question on
Yes.
e-learning, ma'am. There are a lot of questions on children are used to playing outside, and how can we tap onto their emotional skills online? So I think one of the best ways is some videos that I have seen are of activities where teachers don't show themselves. One of the ways that you can do is show yourself and have a lot of activity-based work where you are connecting to the different children and you're using different kind of activities, colors, sharing, talking, where it's not just a lecture method for the small children, but you are allowing space for the small children to interact with their classmates also. So if we do activities where children do activities and then share it with their friends so that they feel good and happy and look forward to the session.
So Azma, you have said we can have a blended approach. So we can have a screen time as well as off-screen time. So off-screen time, the activities which you have suggested, so that can be coming as a blended approach in our lesson plan.
We can do it online with the children during the class. So the teachers are asking, what can we do now for social emotional learning? So how can we have a virtual online circle time class? So one of the ways to have the online circle time classes, have a prepared activity or something that we do with the children, ask them to draw something or paint whatever when you have things ready, and then share it with everybody on the screen so that they have a chance to interact.
Let them play teacher, doctor. Let them play. Role play can be a very good medium for the social emotional learning.
Yes.
So these things, and child knows how to play alone. Teacher.
Gee.
Even something as simple as Simon, Simon Says would be a good social emotional activity. You're using listening skills, you're waiting for your turn, you have to remember and do what you have to do. So a lot of things that you can actually do online as a part of your, circle time. A lot of mindfulness activities. And how mindfulness activities is connected to social emotional learning is it basically, it appeals to all the senses of the child. You can do different activities which appeal to the different senses. It could be smell, it could be, every sense. And it basically increases, like I was saying, it increases the pause time in children, your ability to just be with yourself for some time. And I think that is the biggest challenge for children of this generation, being with themselves. They have so much of stimulation all the time. As Asma always says, that, we are stirring them all the time. There's no settle down time at all. So I think mindfulness activities would be great to plan it in advance and tell parents to also keep a few things ready for you to do activities.
You have used this term twice. So can you tell the audience about what is mindfulness?
Mindfulness would basically mean helping children stay with a particular sense and also be with themselves. So it could be I could do an activity with taste. So I'd probably just ask children to sit and give them all a little raisin, which they'll pop into their mouth. And that mindfulness activity is to stay with taste. It could be we give them flowers into their hand and play nice music, get them to smell different kinds of flowers. So they're still with themselves, they're being patient, they have to stay with the sense of, smell. It could be something that they have to see and then be able to interpret it. Or it could be just breathing exercises. It could be touch, give them different things. And I think that is already being done in a lot of preschools, but that can be connected to building self-control in the child and building self-soothing skills as well. So I think mindfulness in a short form would mean, in a very basic sense, would mean the child's ability to be aware of the senses and to be with themselves.
I would just like to add to what Anjali said. This topic is so huge enough, the mindfulness. So that's why on 7th of May, we have a special session where we have a meditation, mindfulness and child psychology, where we are getting once again another set of experts to speak on this topic. A lot of questions have been coming in from the audiences. How do we handle in the current COVID-19 situation? How do we connect to it? So I would just like to share to our audience also, we have been viewing our questions. Many times you find the experts are not seeing on the screen, but their eyes are below. It's not that they are into some other task, but they are reading your questions, which are circulated by the backend team on WhatsApp to them. Right? So they are interacting. To save the airtime, we are trying to interact among ourselves on the WhatsApp, so that when one expert is speaking, the rest of them are preparing for the next questions to be either directed to somebody or to be answered. Now, coming back to a lot of questions coming in, how do we go about the current COVID-19 situation? since we are getting experts into each of their fields, and this is an actual classroom training situation. COVID-19 is there. Yes, it is going to be there for next maybe 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. But there is, every problem has an end. Every situation has a solution. So the experts coming in here are also giving you a guidance about their knowledge and how to go about it. Yeah, I will also, since this question is popping up, I'll ask the experts how they are handling the current COVID-19 situation in respect to the topic on which they are experts. How does this be delivered in the COVID-19 situation? Leaving the tech part aside, how do they deliver it to their kids, or what is their thoughts on that? Yeah. So we can start with maybe Anjali ji, then take Asma ma'am, take Rita ma'am.
Yeah, we've just answered.
I think one of the things that we have been doing, because we are specifically a social emotional learning program, one of the things we have been doing is doing an emotional check-in with children. I think what children are going through is so unique. None of us know what they feel because we are going through it for the first time as well. So definitely do an emotional check-in. If your children have the vocabulary, the emotional vocabulary, they would probably be able to express themselves. I mentioned art. Another thing would be to play. We have been doing experiential learning sessions online, and it's been working beautifully. Another thing would be, if children are unable to express themselves, is if you're before you start class, would be just to play some nice music, set up a stopwatch, which is going to be fun for the child to also see I have only so much time, and just ask them to draw or paint or do whatever they want, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Post that, ask children to interpret their thoughts, and very often after they finish, without thinking, when they paint or draw something, they're able to look at it and share what they were feeling at that time. So an emotional check-in, conversations about what's happening around your house, how do you feel. We also do like gallery walks where we show children about what's happening around you, because I think a lot of children feel frustrated about being at home, having to stay at home. Another thing that helps is to kind of build a sense of gratitude, is that we still have a home, we still have access to so many things, but look at the world outside. So it has been very helpful to do a gallery walk as well, where we show them pictures and then we kind of come back, and then children are like, oh, I'm actually happy for the things I have. I think I need to help my parents. So I think all those connections, lot of connections can be done online as well.
And apart from that, we can suggest to the family to keep the albums out where they have celebrated together the birthdays or Diwali or Holi, and let them speak to their extended family members. So let them connect, like we are connected with the webinar. Let them also connect with their family members. Let them talk to them. They can see them on the videos. So that kind of connection also can help the social emotional development. And these photographs also can give them the reminder when they were having their birthday, who has come, and seeing the photographs, they will be remembering some of their friends. So when they remember some of the friends, then they can talk to that friend. So that way they can be connected. And parents, they also need to give them time. This is a time when they have to really play with them, dance with them, have a music session with them. So it's very, very important to engage the child and then see if the child is showing any symptom which is very different than otherwise child are showing. That also parents need to observe, because this is a time maybe children are showing some of their behavior which otherwise they have not shown, and that can convert into the problem. So those kind of observations also parents should be having. That way
I
we can
think,
help.
ma'am, parents can also share their stories with their children.
Yes.
Of when they were little and how times were there at that time. And when you share your stories, you share your problems, you share how you overcame problems, what problems they had when they go to school. So the children are able to relate better.
Yeah.
And they are also able
There
to
is a
see
book,
that parents
Russian
also
book
happened.
called When Daddy Was a Little Boy.
When daddy was a little boy, when mummy was a little girl, the
Little
kinds of
boy.
friends they
So
had.
their stories are like what Asma has said. So what Asma has said, the story is when daddy was a little boy, he used to miss the bus. So the child said, "Oh, daddy also has missed the bus."
Yes.
So like this, is given that book. It helps children for their
Yes.
social emotional development.
Yes. Ma'am, there's a
Okay.
question from the audience about allowing parents to come into the nursery when I was talking about transition. Can I address that question?
Please, please.
So, ma'am, somebody has asked about when I was talking about transition and allowing children to come into the nursery. They have said that it might disturb the other children. So, I'd like to tell the audience that when we are doing transition for a nursery or a playgroup, it's in the beginning of the year. And I think I had mentioned that we give different time slots to different parents. So the idea is that the parents come into the nursery with the child, and the child sees the environment and becomes familiar with it, becomes familiar with the surrounding, becomes familiar with the environment, so that he does not have the fear of coming to a school or a playgroup. So that was the idea. And even when you're taking the child away from the parent, there are different time slots for the parents. So that the teacher is able to give attention to the child, and it's just a small phase at the beginning of the year, help the children to settle inside the classroom. And after 1 or 2 weeks, when the fear of a new place is gone, you get back to your normal school routine. So it's just a small phase at the beginning of the year to help children settle down. There's another question about children crying and crying and crying into the class. And I think if you take this approach of having a transition and building trust with the child, then the fear of the child is going to go down and he might not cry so much.
Apart from that, you can have a setting act also where you can give
Yes.
this to the parents. When they are buying the bottle, ask the child, you are buying the bottle because you will be going to the school. You
Yes.
are buying bag that time also. When you are going and taking the uniform from the school, take child. This school you are going and this is your uniform which you are wearing. You
Yes.
show the buses to the child. In this bus, the children are going. So you will be going by whatever mode of transport the child is taking. But so this kind of readiness, if given to the children before they go to the school, then
Yes.
they are prepared for the school, and this readiness definitely help the child to settle better.
Yes. And I
I
would
think-
also request the audience to please don't scare your children with the teacher. Preparing is very important for school, but often parents say, if you don't do this, I'll tell your teacher. Tumhari teacher se shikayat karungi. You know, these kind of things, when you are already creating the fear of a teacher into a small child's mind. So I think be mindful of what you're
Yes.
saying to the child, and don't make teacher into a monster. And the teacher is supposed to be friendly like a mother and help the child to grow and nourish and settle down and give the child a lot of love.
I think there's one question which
Yes.
Nandini has
So-
also shared.
So, ending up the session, what do you think?
Yes. Can I just
Chandra?
address this one question, Rita ma'am?
Please, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go
there are
ahead.
two questions which have come up. One is Nandini's just shared it. Is yes, schools spend only a couple of hours with children. Organizations like us meet them only once a week through the week. So parents being aware of social emotional skills is very important. So having parent sessions to help parents understand what is social emotional learning and teaching children these skills, whereas parents are doing exactly opposite at home, would be would not be beneficial for the child at all. So keeping parents in the loop is very important, and equally important is for schools and for teachers to invest in their own social emotional learning, because unless we equip ourselves and keep improving our social emotional skills, I think that transfer to children will not happen. And another question I saw a couple of times coming is, what about shy children? I think one of the things that would help is, like, I think Asma also used it for getting children used to school. With shy children is to use the process, whether it's shy, anger, is with any emotion, to use the process of laddering, that you take them one step at a time. When we shock children, if you tell a shy child, suddenly today you have to come and talk in front of the class, the child will probably not want to come back to school the next day. So very simple things like if it's a very shy child, maybe step 1 will be just for that child to smile at everyone. Step 2 would be to say good morning. Step 3 would be, can you just walk up to the front of the class and go back? So using the method of laddering, be it with aggression or with extreme shyness, is helpful for the child in the long run versus shocking a child to doing something where, they're threatened. So they're just doing it out of fear. I think, I think those were 2 inputs I'd just like to share.
Learning to read was never so much fun. Help your child acquire reading skills starting at home. Get your child reading and learning with the SquareTales reading app today and turn them into confident readers for life. Each book slowly increases the level of learning following a sequence of phonological awareness, so your child becomes an independent reader. All this while the child is playing. Download the SquareTales reading app today.